Our first question is, what is the result? What do I want? What is the outcome? Those are all words for the same thing. The reason we call it RPM, by the way, is it's what's the result, what's the purpose, and what's my map or massive action plan. But also RPM in a car, more RPM you got, the faster that car can go with less stress. More power. You get more power with RPM. Well, there's more power when you have these three questions in this sequence than you're ever going to get by going, what am I going to do, no matter what damn planner you have, no matter how complex it is or simple it is, whether it's digital or paper, it's got color or not, doesn't matter. If I never saw you again and all you did was take this thinking process, it'll change your life. But if you also put it into a system, you'll get even more out of it. And by the way, when asking, what do I really want? What's my outcome, right? What do I want from this? That's critically important that you get really clear about it. Again, like I said, you want to be as specific as possible in many ways. You want to be as measurable as possible. If you think about playing golf, for example, I'm not a golfer, but one thing I learned playing golf was the more you focus precisely on when you go, the closer you're going to be to achieving it. If you just look at the general area of the green, it's very different than if you look at where you think the flag is versus exactly where the hole is. Your subconscious has a way. Our brains, you've heard me talk about this before, have this thing called the reticular activating system, the RAS. That part of your brain determines what you notice. Well, when you're totally focused on something, it's something you really want. Want, that's the key word. Desire, not have to. Get to, want, desire. This is my outcome, not somebody else's outcome. Your brain will do anything to find a way to get there. It's like a servo mechanism in a rocket. If you send a rocket at a plane, in the old days, if you had the wrong angle, it missed. But now they have a servo mechanism like your brain, and when the target moves, what happens? The rocket moves and follows it. That's the power. Well, that's what happens in your brain. The more clear you are about what you want, the more specific, the easier it is to get there. So we want it clear and we want it to be compelling. Those are the two pieces. What do I really want? What's my outcome? What's my result? Let's try to make it as clear, because that's what's going to drive us to move forward. I mentioned Steph Curry. Like Steph Curry, I already told you about his practice, but if you ever watched him play, again, he makes it look effortless. Well, a huge part of it is practice, but because I got to work with him, I dug into his brain, like, how do you do this? And you'll watch him doing practice after practice after practice. Watch this. Like, look at these shots. Poof. I mean, it's just over and over and over again. But let me tell you what his biggest secrets is. Not only does he practice and practice perfectly, but watch this. This is what he practices on. I found out when I sit down with him, well, I'm curious, when you're doing this, what do you focus on? And he said, my entire focus is not on the basket, not the whole thing, not even the rim. This is what he focuses on right there. Those two little rings at the very edge at the top where you see the strings in, right in the center. He focuses on that spot and putting the ball just above that spot. Most people look at the basket as a whole. He's that clear and he's that practiced. You follow me? It's both. Because his focus is so precise, he finds the target. The more clear you are, the quicker you are. So what do we need to succeed? Number one, we need a target. And we need to answer the question, what do we really want? And again, if I'm going to go have a conversation with you, I'm going to sit down, if I know you personally, before I'm going to try and figure out, what do we really want to accomplish here? When I sit down in a meeting with anyone, we'll spend a moment or two or whatever socializing for a little bit. I want to connect. But when it's down to business, my first question in every meeting, anyone that ever gets with me is, what's our what? What's our outcomes? Tell me what our outcomes are today. What are we here to get done? I'm not here to do a meeting. I'm going to show you, most meetings are a disaster. They're a waste of time. They're stupid. I'm going to show you on the last day here how to run effective meetings. Because I have all these companies, I teach all of them how to run the meetings. Most meetings are just a total pain in the ass and a total waste of time, and things are totally circular. But the more clear you are on what you want and why you want it, the easier it is. But first you got to know what you want. No, so that's the second question. Okay, now we know exactly what the target is. If I've got a map and I know exactly where I want to go, that's really valuable. But whether I get there or not is, do I have enough fuel? I got a target, but do I have enough fuel? Do I have enough energy to get there? The energy that gets you to take action is the why. So the second and RPM question is, purpose-driven, is what's my purpose? Why do I really want this? It's the why. Why is this a must for me to achieve, not a should? What about this? Why do I want to do this? Again, notice want versus have to. Get to versus have to. Get to versus have to is different between rich and poor. I don't mean money. You get very little money, but if every day everything's a have to, you're poor. If most of what you're doing is a get to, you're rich, you're happy, you're fulfilled. So this, you decide this, you make the decision of what it's gonna be like. And when you start doing this and it becomes a habit, you're gonna feel, I got a compelling target, and man, I know why I'm doing it. I got the fuel. Now, once we know the second question, the third question is, okay, how? But the way we do it is we say, what's my map? What's my massive action plan? Massive action is the cure-all. You can solve anything with enough massive action. When I see people who've succeeded, no matter who they are, there's one common denominator, and it is an intelligence. I love wickedly smart people. The one uniform piece of people that overachieve is they're relentless. They're relentless, they persist. They just keep going. They've got this massive action plan. If one thing doesn't work, they do another until they get there, because they know what they want and why they want it. Here's the problem. If you ask this question first, which is really the how question, and you've never done something before, the minute you go like, oh, how do I lose 50 pounds? You've never done it before. How do I make the $10 million in this business? I've never even made $1 million. Your brain's gonna go, I don't know how. So you go from excitement about a goal to, I don't know how, and then you get uncertainty, and so what happens? Then uncertainty can lead to fear, or at least uncertainty, and then you don't follow through. Without a certain level of certainty, people don't follow through. You've seen it in sports, you see it in businesses, you see it all the time. Hesitation kills in business. You need momentum. So if you start out, in business mastery, I often call it we talk about this idea of, think of the how as something that you do last. I call it the tyranny of how. Because if you go how and you've never done it, your brain goes, I've never done this, you get uncertain and I don't know what to do. So notice when we do a plan at Business Mastery for people, like a 10-10-10 plan, those of you who've been there, and figure out how to grow their business 30%, the way it works is we don't ask how. We figure out what we want and why we want it, precisely what we want and why we want it, and then we figure out how to do it. And when you know what you want and why you want it bad enough, the how just flows. It's not hard when you're in a peak what? But your job is getting in that state, and the way you do that is fully answer the first two questions in a way that is compelling. Then, by the way, when I make that map, many of you are going, well, man, when I ask, what's my massive action plan for this? I got more to-dos now than I had before when you had the RPM system. You will actually end up initially with more action items. But you know what you're doing, why you want to do it, but then I'll show you the next step on this will be, you will go through the whole plan, and then you'll know I don't need to do this whole plan. 20% of the items on my list will get me 80% of the way there. And sometimes you'll be surprised, 20% of the items will get you 100% there. The more you stop focusing on movement or activity versus achievement, the more you stop focusing on all that, and you know what you want, why you want it, your brain will find better ways. And if you work with other people, okay, this is the result we all agree on. Why are we gonna do this? Everybody agrees on that. Now, you take it and come up with a map. Or I'll give you some ideas, my ideas, but you figure it out. You might have a better idea than I do, or let's collectively come up with a map to do it. And then we got all this list, well, do we need to do all of it? Which of these things will really get us there fastest? And I asterisk those, I'll show you later on, and I have a time on them, and I call it my must time. And in my day that's overbooked, which it's always overbooked, I then always go back, let me just find my asterisks, my must times, when the computer does it for me. And I just do those, I can do that in 5 minutes, I can do that in 8 minutes, I can do this in 15 minutes, just knocked off gigantic things. Different game. No stress, a lot of excitement.